It's midnight. The city's neon lights flicker through the rain, like they're hinting at some long, buried secret finally waking up. Have you ever heard ancient whispers in your dreams, warning of an apocalyptic reckoning? Tonight, we're diving into the world of the 10 most terrifying prophecies from the Book of Revelation. A realm where fear and revelation, destruction and rebirth collide. Legend has it these prophecies were God's final warnings to humanity. Though they've never fully come to pass, they've sparked centuries of debate and soul-searching. Some believe the unfulfilled visions are divine tests of faith and free will, while others say they carry the power to shatter tradition and rewrite destiny. Now picture yourself in an old cathedral, candlelight flickering against cracked murals, every fracture whispering. When the truth is revealed, the world will never be the same. In this space, each prophecy isn't just a glimpse of the future, but a spiritual epic of faith. Tonight, we're not just unpacking the surface of these doomsday visions. We're diving deep into their mind, bending philosophy, and the way they challenge everything we thought we knew about God. So, are you ready? Step into the unknown with us. And let's begin this journey across time and belief to unlock the secrets behind Revelation's darkest warnings. Ever since the Book of Revelation first appeared, its prophecies of doomsday have stirred endless debates and reflections throughout history. Old biblical texts, Greek or Roman myths, and secret manuscripts from medieval alchemists all tried to decode the mysterious signs pointing to humanity's turning point. These top 10 terrifying prophecies in Revelation aren't just about destruction. They're more like a mirror reflecting ancient understandings of a mysterious universe and forces beyond time. Back in the late 1st century, as the Roman Empire started to crumble, early Christians found hope in the midst of suffering and persecution. They saw divine meaning in strange visions and apocalyptic messages, making Revelation an irreplaceable part of their sacred belief. These prophecies described end-time wars, cosmic disasters, and the arrival of a new heaven and earth. A duality that inspired believers but terrified the masses. Ancient scholars believed every symbol in these visions was a test of human free will and a clue about the future's unfolding. During the Middle Ages, alchemists and mystics took it even further, digging deep into the meanings behind Revelation's warnings. To them, these prophecies weren't just doom alerts. They were roadmaps towards soul purification and spiritual transformation. Through sacred geometry, celestial charts, and coded symbols, they turned apocalyptic imagery into motivation for inner growth, trying to turn spiritual lead into gold, finding rebirth through destruction. Eastern civilizations had similar ideas. The Chinese I Ching teaches that balance and constant change drive the world, and that chaos is often a stepping stone to harmony. In ancient Hindu and Buddhist texts, end times and cycles of rebirth show that destruction and renewal are timeless cosmic laws. Across cultures, the message is clear: mystical forces aren't fixed. They're always flowing, shifting, rebuilding, and they challenge everything we think we know about God, fate, and reality. So why have these terrifying prophecies been taboo for so long? Because those in power feared what might happen if people started waking up, questioning control, questioning order. That's why the prophecies were edited, buried, or flat out erased from history. But true wisdom can't be silenced. It flows quietly in subtle signs and cryptic warnings, waiting for the right soul to listen. And it's through this blend of history and hidden philosophy that we realize Revelation's scariest visions aren't just about fear. They're a call, a whisper to awaken the deep. Unstoppable longing in all of us for truth and freedom. Imagine walking through a dim underground chamber, the walls covered in weathered symbols whispering ancient oracles from a forgotten time. The 10 most terrifying prophecies lie there like sleeping giants, waiting to be awakened. The first speaks of a cataclysm that resets everything, a force that will quietly unravel the entire fabric of our world. The second warns of a mysterious judgment day, where truth and lies will be torn apart, and every hidden sin will be exposed. In ancient texts, these prophecies weren't just warnings. They were powerful symbols, representing humanity's final rebellion against its own limitations and false beliefs. Picture a prophet, worn by despair yet unshackable, chanting into the chaos, each word hinting that only by destroying illusion can we be reborn. The real power of prophecy lies in its ability to make us question who's truly in control. Are these terrifying visions divine punishment, or just the mirror of our deepest fears about the future? And yet, even within the darkness, there's always a sliver of light. Like alchemists chasing the secret to turn lead into gold, each prophecy holds the seed of transformation. Maybe the fact they haven't come true is the point. They're a test, a wake-up call from something greater, reminding us the future isn't set in stone, but woven from each choice and every awakening moment. This energy doesn't just flicker on ancient scrolls. It echoes in modern science too, as quantum physics tells us our consciousness can influence reality itself. And maybe prophecy is just the bridge between what we see and what we believe. When you stare into the face of these so-called doomsday warnings, you're really staring into your own untapped potential. Do you have the courage to break through fear and step into the unknown? Every time you reflect on what these ancient prophecies truly mean, it's like lighting a small flame in the dark, guiding you toward truth, rebirth, and something far greater than fate. Because in the end, prophecy isn't just about endings. It's an invitation to awaken, to rise beyond limitation. One, to unlock the power within you to shape what comes next. When we dig deeper into the hidden power of these prophecies, we find they're full of contradictions and layered meanings. On the surface, unfulfilled prophecies may look like failures, but in reality, they constantly challenge our beliefs and shake up how we see the world. Ancient prophets used rich metaphors to describe both judgment and rebirth, and those contradictions. They hint at a deeper truth. Sometimes destruction is just the beginning, and within fear, the seeds of hope are quietly waiting. Some believe these prophecies are just reflections of our deepest fears, not actual warnings of the end. Others argue they're spiritual tests meant to push humanity past its limits and force a redefinition of the divine. It's like an alchemist failing again and again, only to finally turn lead into gold. Those dramatic, apocalyptic visions might actually be soul-level trials designed to wake us up, stretch our boundaries, and get us ready for a future we can't yet imagine. These ancient symbols and signs cross cultures and timelines. Whether it's the 7 seals in Western prophecy or the cycles of fate described in Eastern texts, they all send the same message. Destiny isn't fixed, it's a dynamic, living web shaped by awareness and choice. Prophecy's real power doesn't come from predicting events. It comes from sparking a fire in us to seek inner truth, and to hold on to courage and hope when nothing feels certain. Even more mind-blowing, modern science, things like quantum entanglement and space-time bending, seems to echo this old wisdom. It shows us that conscious thought can actually ripple through reality, like unlocking a secret code. Unfulfilled prophecies might just be fragments of that code, ever shifting, always nudging us to think bigger, dream wilder, and break past the limits we've accepted. They don't just question old ideas about God. They invite us to ask, what if the divine isn't just something we worship out there, but something we awaken in here, at the intersection of soul and cosmos? And yeah, those ideas used to shake the world. The thinkers who dare question the old doctrines were often punished for challenging power. But today, we get to stand on their shoulders, look at prophecy through fresh eyes, and see it as a force for awakening and evolution. Because when you start to code the deeper meaning of these unfulfilled prophecies, you realize something powerful. The divine may not be distant after all, but alive and waiting, right there in the heart of anyone bold enough to break free and seek something more. So, how do we turn the deep wisdom hidden in these unfulfilled prophecies into a real force that can transform how we understand the divine? The answer lies in bridging inner awareness with practical action, using a mix of ancient rituals and modern practices to step into your own power and take charge of your destiny. Here are some hands on ways to bring those mystical insights into your daily life. First, start by keeping a prophecy journal. Spend a few quiet minutes each morning and writing down any gut feelings, dreamages, sudden insights, or flashes of intuition that come to you. It may feel random at first, but just like the ancients etched their visions onto scrolls, these fragments will start to reveal patterns and meanings over time. Your journal becomes more than a diary. It becomes a map of your inner journey and a key to decoding what those unfulfilled prophecies might really be trying to say. Next, make regular meditation or stillness a part of your routine. Find a calm space, light a candle or burn some incense. Close your eyes and focus on your breath. Let yourself sink into that quiet, timeless space where past, present, and future blur together. It's in this space that the whispers and symbols of ancient prophecies may quietly emerge, giving you glimpses of insight that words alone can't explain. You might also want to repeat a mantra, prayer, or symbol from a tradition you resonate with. It helps anchor your focus and can unlock deeper layers of subconscious wisdom. Another powerful step is to dive into the study of sacred texts and prophetic writings. Pick up trusted books on mysticism, prophecy, or ancient spiritual systems, and really explore what they have to say about divinity, fate, and transformation. Join a group or online circle where others are discussing these themes. You'd be surprised how often a shared insight can crack open something big within you. When you combine this knowledge with your own lived experience, you'll start to see those mysterious messages in a whole new light and begin applying them in real life. Also, create a personal ritual that speaks to you. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be lighting a candle at sunrise, setting out a few symbolic objects like crystals or old coins, and sitting in silence with a specific intention. These simple acts become a sacred rhythm, helping you reconnect with that forgotten, hidden energy. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice subtle changes inside and out, like your inner world slowly reshaping the outer one. Finally, keep a sharp mind and an open heart. Don't just accept any prophecy blindly. Use it as a lens to reflect on your choices, beliefs, and growth. Whenever life gets confusing or hard, flip through your journal or recall your meditative insights. you'll often find clues you missed the first time. Quiet nudges that point the way forward. And just like quantum science shows us that our attention influences reality, remember this: every time you become more self-aware, every decision you make with clarity and intention, you're helping shape the future. Through these practices, you won't just better understand the power of prophecy, you'll awaken the potential within you to transform your life. Every exploration of prophecy becomes a cleansing, a rebirth, a chance to write your story and redefine what divine and destiny really mean, one conscious choice at a time. Unfulfilled prophecies aren't empty failures. They're deep revelations that challenge how we've traditionally seen God and destiny. As we've explored today, these prophecies, though never fully realized, quietly stir something powerful in us. A deep longing for self-awakening and inner transformation. They remind us that the divine isn't some distant force above us. It's the spark inside anyone bold enough to break free from fate and seek real truth. On this journey, we've seen how ancient sages used runes and rituals to pass down timeless messages, and how even modern science reflects those same truths through the mysteries of consciousness and energy. Unfulfilled prophecies are like ancient mirrors. They reflect our deepest fears and hopes, and push us to rethink the boundaries of belief in the divine. Now, I want to ask you, if these prophecies really are testing us, are you ready to use your inner power to reshape your future? Drop your thoughts and stories in the comments. We want to hear from you. Let's keep this conversation going and explore the wisdom that spans across time. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this journey, because every step toward the truth brings us closer to that forgotten light of the divine. In the next issue, we will discuss these 10 terrible predictions one by one. Imagine this, like the whole world just hit a reset button, and in an instant, everything we once knew, our civilizations, technology, laws of nature, even human emotion, vanishes into nothing. An ancient Sumerian tablet, carved in cuneiform, paints this exact scene of ultimate destruction. When the final grain of sand falls, all order collapses, and everything that once existed is wiped away, leaving only silence and emptiness. The prophecy describes an overwhelming sense of doom. Dark skies, falling stars like shattered dreams. The ground quaking as if the universe itself is coming undone. Believers, scholars and spiritual teachers say this great reset isn't just about annihilation, but a sacred purge, a clean slate for rebirth. Just like an alchemist must pass through death to transform lead into gold. Only after the collapse of the old can a new, purer world rise. This prophecy pushes us to recognize the decay within our systems and habits. It dares us to let go of outdated identities and embrace real transformation. In that way, the end isn't the end. It's a spiritual reset that forces us to rethink life, purpose, and the rules of the universe. But critics argue that this idea can lead to a fatalistic mindset, trapping people in fear and hopelessness. If everything's destined to be wiped out, then what's the point of striving, building, or believing in progress? They worry such thinking could spark panic, justify extremist policies, or make people give up on solving real-world problems here and now. Oversimplifying the future as a total wipeout, they say, ignores the complexity and resilience of human history and chips away at our will to shape a better tomorrow. This prophecy, the Great Reset, sits right on the edge between awakening and despair. On one hand, it's a warning that we must let the old ways die to make room for something new. On the other, it can become a dangerous excuse to stop trying. All through history, from the biblical flood to Hindu cycles of destruction to Maya doomsday myths, similar prophecies have sparked massive cultural and spiritual shifts. Every time destruction was foretold, it came hand in hand with a call for inner awakening and a belief in what could rise from the ashes. So here's the real question. Is the Great Reset a deep soul cleansing, or just another fear-fueled doomsday myth? There's no final answer yet, but it pushes us to ask, when we're standing at the edge of collapse, can we still choose the path of rebirth and hope? Picture this. It's a silent dusk, the sky heavy with stillness, and you're standing before an ancient, crumbling temple. Thunder rumbles in the distance, as if the heavens themselves are preparing for an unavoidable, final reckoning. In ancient texts, the prophecy known as the arrival of the mysterious judgment speaks of a day when all sins and virtues, all light and darkness, will be laid bare, and every soul must stand before a force beyond comprehension. The vision is striking. A blinding rift tears through the sky, splitting chaos from order as forces of good and evil clash in midair. Secrets long buried are pulled into the light, and nothing can remain hidden. But this isn't just a test of human deeds. It's a mirror, one that reflects the raw truth of each soul stripped of guilt, masks, and time. In that moment, all illusion falls away, and your essence is exposed. The verdict: a path toward eternal redemption, or a fall into endless shadow. To believers, this judgment is not about punishment, it's about purification. Like fire forging the purest gold, only through the harshest trial can the soul be refined. This prophecy rings like a spiritual alarm, urging us to face our flaws and fears and unlock the power within us to change. Ancient sages believed that only a merciless judgment could push people to drop their pretenses, return to their true selves, and ascend beyond fate. Many religious and spiritual traditions see Judgment Day not as an end, but as a rebirth, a reset where past actions are weighed, and a new path is forged through choice and transformation. But critics argue this prophecy is heavy with fatalism and could trap people in fear and despair. If judgment is inevitable and final, what's the point of trying to grow or change? Some warn it could be twisted into a tool for control, used by authoritarian leaders or extreme doctrines to suppress freedom, enforce obedience, and erase nuance. They point out, reducing all of human complexity into a simple good verse. Evil split ignores the messiness of real life, where every soul carries both light and shadow. Prophecies like this, they say, can divide rather than unite, fueling fear rather than inspiring collective wisdom or healing. Historically, the idea of divine judgment has sparked both spiritual awakening and dangerous manipulation. During the Renaissance, thinkers reimagined Judgment Day as a call for personal enlightenment and justice. In contrast, some medieval movements used it to spread terror and justify control. Modern thinkers like Carl Jung saw judgment not as external wrath, but as the inner process of facing your shadow. And only by doing that can you evolve into your full self. That's why this prophecy remains so powerful and so polarizing. It can inspire deep transformation or deepen fear. So we're left with a question that cuts to the soul. Is this judgment the voice of the divine, calling us back to truth? Or is it a myth built from our fear, meant to control, not awaken? The answer isn't written in the stars. It's written within you. Now I want to hear from you. Do you see this mysterious judgment as a path to inner awakening or a prison of fear? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this journey into ancient prophecy and timeless truth has only just begun. This prophecy isn't just about a supernatural, blood-soaked, apocalyptic war. It's really a symbolic clash between inner and outer worlds, between good and evil. The imagery is intense. The sky ignites with a blood-red glow, as if doomsday fire is ready to consume everything, while angels and fallen beings clash across the heavens. Their light and twisting together in a terrifying display. It makes you wonder, is this a real, walled final battle, or a deeper test of our human spirit, a trial between darkness and light within ourselves? Our believers say the battle of the apocalypse is actually about cleansing and rebirth. Stories like this echo across history, from the Titanomachy of Greek myth to Ragnarok in Norse legend. These epic battles always bring destruction, but also the promise of renewal. The war in the prophecy stands for the light, unavoidable tension between light and dark. And that tension is what fuels both societal progress and personal growth. Like an alchemist turning chaos into gold through inner transformation, the apocalyptic war is less about swords and fire, and more about a ritual of self-purification and spiritual rebirth. After the storm, a new world is said to emerge. Truer, purer, more awakening, but plenty of critics of doubts. They argue that reducing the world to a constant fight between extremes promotes a fatalistic mindset. And worse, that kind of thinking has been twisted by radicals to justify violence and fear throughout history. Political and religious powers have used the idea of Judgment Day to fuel wars and purges, plunging societies into panic. That history makes people ask, is this really about spiritual renewal, or just another way to spread fear and control? Some scholars say the prophecy oversimplifies the complex, messy truth about human nature. We're not just light or dark, we're both. And real growth comes from finding balance, not chasing some fantasy of perfect justice or punishment. On another take, this so-called battle of the apocalypse might actually be a metaphor, a reminder that even when the world looks calm on the surface, wasn't every person is fighting their own quiet war between right, and a leader at the top might unintentionally unleash the dart of themselves in a single decision. Everyday people wrestle with temptation, everyday temptation, and self-doubt all the time. And those small inner battles end up shaping the course of their lives. That's what gives the prophecy its weight. It's not just grand drama, it's a mirror for our own internal struggles. Interestingly, some modern science actually supports parts of this symbolic view. Quantum entanglement and chaos theory show us that everything's connected. And even the smallest shift can trigger huge consequences. Sounds familiar? Right. Just like the prophecy says, every choice matters. Every inner battle could spark a chain reaction. So maybe this so-called war isn't just an outer collapse, but an inner revolution. One that pushes us toward awareness, healing, and transformation. In the end, this battle of the apocalypse is packed with symbolism and controversy. It warns us about possible collapse, yes, but it also calls on us to rise, to evolve, and to face the chaos within with courage. So what is it really? The end of everything, or the trial we must pass to become something greater? That's a question only the brave, those willing to face their truth, can answer. When we take a deep look at the prophecy of the battle of the apocalypse, clear that it's not just about a devastating clash in the outside world, but for a silent spiritual revolution happening in the human soul, the gods and demons, it being in deep with the devastating clash in us. Angels and fallen ones described in the prophecy aren't symbols of good and evil. They represent the constant push and pull of light and shadow, positive and negative energy within each of us. Some believe this battle points to a grand cleansing, where only through complete destruction and rebirth can a new spiritual and social order emerge. Others are skeptical, arguing that such a black and white view oversimplifies human nature and reality, turning complex truths into a narrow fight between good and evil. They warn that this kind of narrative can fuel division, or worse, be weaponized by extremists to spread fear and justify violence. Our supporters, though, say the real meaning lies in how the prophecy challenges us to break out of old ways of thinking, just like ancient alchemists turned lead into gold through intense inner work. This battle is actually about each person facing their inner darkness and transforming it into something greater. Throughout history, apocalyptic prophecies have served not just as warnings of destruction, but as wake-up calls, sparking a deeper pursuit of self, growth, and cultural evolution. Even modern science backs some of these ideas. In quantum physics and chaos theory, we've learned that tiny changes in uncertain systems can lead to massive, unpredictable outcomes in that light. The prophecy reveals a truth. Every small choice we make holds the potential to change everything. On the other hand, critics warn that the prophecy leans heavily on fatalism. It might push people into despair or blind belief, discouraging real action and progress. If we rely too much on prophecy to explain or predict the future, we risk ignoring the present, or worse, letting others use those beliefs to promote dangerous ideologies and deepen societal rifts, reducing the human experience to a simple battle between good and evil. Also leaves out the gray areas, the nuance and the rich diversity of life. In reality, light and dark are always intertwined, and true wisdom lies in learning how to balance the two, not in chasing some final righteous victory. Still, history shows us that prophecy can spark massive change. During the Middle Ages, fear and hope surrounding the end times helped fuel religious reform and social movements. Today, modern crisis, climate change, economic upheaval have pushed people to revisit ancient prophecies, not as doom-scrolling material, but as sources of insight and preparation. This ongoing conversation between past and present shows just how many ways these prophecies can be read, and more importantly, raises a tough question. Can we learn from what hasn't happened yet and turn those warnings into a force for awakening and change? In all, the prophecy of the battle of the apocalypse is both a warning of destruction and a call to awaken our inner potential. It reminds us that even in the face of chaos and collapse, the power to change our fate still lies within. Through this ongoing tension and search for balance, each of us is given a chance to find our own light and redefine what divinity and destiny really mean. As we reach the end of this journey, one that's cross-time mystery, the power addiction of unfulfilled prophecies offers us a whole new perspective. Divinity isn't fixed or unreachable. but something constantly reshaped through inner awakening. Each prophecy that never came to pass is like an ancient mirror, reflecting our deepest fears and hopes, and challenging what we thought we knew about fate and the divine. Though these visions never fully materialized in history, they still stir something powerful within us, quietly urging us to reevaluate our connection to the divine, to the universe, and to ourselves. Like the alchemist, turning heavy lead into shining gold, the true strength of prophecy lies in how it inspires us to break through old patterns and reimagine the future through a whole new lens. They remind us the divine isn't some distant force beyond our reach, but a fire that burns within, driving us toward growth, change, and transformation. Even modern science, through quantum theory and chaos, echoes this ancient wisdom. The future isn't written in stone, but shaped by each tiny choice. Was each moment of awareness aimed? In those times when you feel lost or powerless, it's those unfulfilled prophecies that whisper from the past, reminding you that the key to your destiny has always been in your hands. So now I want to ask you, somewhere along this soul-stirring journey, have you started to feel that pull? The urge to break through old beliefs and seek something new? Are you ready to pick up that long-forgotten key and begin your own path of awakening? Was gonna drop your thoughts and stories in the comments. We'd love to hear how these ancient prophecies have touched you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every search for truth helps light the way forward. Imagine a night so dark, so utterly void of light, that the earth itself is cloaked in a heavy, the suffocating gloom. The sky burns faintly with a blood-red glow, casting eerie shadows across shattered clouds. This is the chilling vision described in ancient as a prophecy, the dark apocalypse, a moment when all light and hope are swallowed by an unstoppable tide of darkness. The world, as it says, will fall into a cataclysm from which there is no escape. According to the prophecy, all peaceful order will collapse. The line between the sacred and the mundane will dissolve. A sweeping force of darkness will tear through the illusion of prosperity, leaving only chaos, despair, and an all-consuming void. The blood-red heavens, the broken stars, and the whispers that echo through the silence all seem to foretell the arrival of true judgment, and only those brave enough to confront their inner darkness will survive and believe the dark apocalypse is not as of this prophecy. Procus. We will talk curse, but a deep spiritual cleansing. They say the old world must first decay and fall before something new can rise, just as the alchemist transforms lead into gold. Darkness and destruction serve as catalysts, pushing people to reflect, to face their shadow, and to evolve after enduring the pain and confusion. The soul is purified, and society can emerge into a brighter, more harmonious era. Some even believe that from this darkness, true heroes will rise. Those who carry a light within and dare to challenge the void. This prophecy inspires those in crisis to search for renewal and to resist the chains of fatalism through inner transformation. But critics argue that the dark apocalypse reeks of doomsday fatalism, was easily driving people into fear and despair. They warn that such narratives could be exploited by extremists to justify control, violence, or manipulation when people believe that everything will inevitably be consumed by darkness. Hope fades, and with it, the will to act, to change, and to resist caution that the prophecy oversimplifies the complexity of reality, reducing the richness of human nature and society into a binary of and room, or overemphasizing destruction. They say can dull our senses to hope, leading to apathy and spiritual paralysis. History holds no shortage of extreme actions carried out in the name of apocalyptic visions. In the Middle Ages, religious fanatics stirred panic with doomsday predictions, launching bloody purges and violent regimes under the claim that the end was near. Even in modern times, extremists have used similar prophecies to spread fear and push radical agendas. Still, some scholars and spiritual teachers offer a more nuanced view. These dark prophecies are not literal forecasts, but symbolic warnings meant to awaken the soul. Like many of Nostradamus's writings, they serve as both caution and invitation to recognize our inner shadow and use it as a pathway to personal and collective renewal in real life. Many have lived through personal dark apocalypses of their own. A person who loses everything, facing death, grief, or devastation, might, on the edge of despair, discover a profound sense of peace, as if reborn through the darkness. Or some, living through societal turmoil, might turn inward through meditation or self-reflection, unlocking long-hidden strength and shedding the illusions that held them back. These stories remind us that darkness isn't just about destruction. It can also be the seed of awakening, yet the question remains: should we interpret darkness as the unavoidable end, or as a vital trial that challenges us to transform? And supporters say only by walking through the deepest night can we understand the true worth of light. Critics warn that glorifying the dark can entrap us in fear and steal our future. In the end, the prophecy of the dark apocalypse carries layers of meaning. It is at once a warning of doom and a metaphor for inner rebirthings. Is darkness the end of all things, or the crucible through which we transcend ourselves and rise in? But the answer remains in motion, echoing through both history and the present, waiting for each soul who dares to seek the truth to answer for themselves. So how can we transform the profound wisdom embedded in the prophecy of the apocalypse into a practical guide for life? One that redefines our understanding of divinity and destiny. The answer lies in the integration of inner awareness, ritual practice, and critical thinking. Together, they form a path of transformation that is uniquely your own. First, begin by creating a spiritual prophecy journal. Whether at dawn or in the stillness of night, spend a few minutes each day recording your emotional landscape, dream symbols, and sudden flashes of insight, like the ancient seers who carved prophecies into stone tablets. Each line you write is an attempt to capture the hidden threads woven between time and fate over time. This journal becomes both a mirror of your inner awakening and a cryptic map to interpreting the symbolic messages of the future. Second, dedicate regular time for deep meditation and mindful stillness. Find a quiet space, light a candle or burn incense, and close your eyes. Let your awareness sink inward. Focus on the breath. Let go of the noise of the day. In this silence, invoke the sensation that time itself is softening. You may choose to whisper ancient incantations or poetic verses that resonate with the theme of your prophecy. These utterances can serve as anchors, harmonizing your mind with the frequency of hidden energies. Through this dialogue with the unknown, you begin to learn how to influence the energetic field around you, subtly shifting the course of destiny from within. Next, immerse yourself in the study of ancient symbolic languages and forbidden runes. Attend esoteric seminars, read mystical texts, join online communities where seekers decode the meanings behind cryptic prophecies. Shared exploration. Join online cryptic prophecies. You'll sharpen your ability to interpret arcane signs and recognize how these symbols might spark inner transformation and even societal change in the present day. You might even craft your own personal rituals. Build a small altar on significant dates. Place objects that symbolize renewal and transmutation. Crystals, ancient coins, handwritten sigils, and engage in silent communion. Every ritual becomes a portal, a chance to attune yourself to the energy of prophecy and to feel the power of rebirth rising from the darkness. Most importantly, maintained by openness and discernment is never an absolute. It is a manifestation of possibility. Modern quantum science reminds us that even the smallness can ripple those days. As you explore these practices, you see even the smallest shift in conscious practice. Take time to revisit your journal, reflect on your rituals, and trace the threads of your transformation. In doing so, you awaken the very forces that the prophecy seeks to reveal, and claim your power to reshape the meaning of both divinity and fate by weaving these practices into your daily life. You turn what was once a terrifying vision into a wellspring of creative power. You cultivate a deeper awareness that transcends the limitation. Each path is an act of soul purification, and spirituality is a ritual rebirth through this ongoing belief. Each with limitations, a limitation, destiny. Each step, revelation, belief was you will discover your own light and the direction that only you were meant to follow on this journey into the untold power of unrealized prophecies. We have witnessed how ancient wisdom can shimmer with the light of rebirth. Even in the deepest darkness, these prophecies, though never fulfilled in the material world, are far more than warnings about the future. They are hidden calls, quiet awakenings, urging us to challenge fate and awaken the divine potential within. They remind us that divinity is not a distant mystery, but a miracle woven from inner power and free will. When we dare to face our inner fears and doubts and open our hearts to the unknown, we begin to find a new self, one forged in both destruction and reconstruction. As the sages of old once said, every whisper of prophecy calls you not to obey, but to question, to transform, to transcend. Perhaps these visions were never about the end of the world at all. Perhaps they were always guiding us toward one truth, that only by breaking our chains can we awaken and be reborn. So now I ask you, are you ready to challenge your fate? Was to redefine your understanding of divinity and the future? Share your thoughts and personal stories in the comments. Let us explore together how this ancient wisdom can become a force for real change. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this message, because every quest for truth ignites that eternal flame within us, was a light that will never be extinguished. Imagine a night sky so intense it shakes your soul, where the countless stars that once hung steady above suddenly tear loose like a ripped canvas, falling one by one in blazing streaks across the silence in ancient prophecy. The fall of the stars wasn't just a vision of cosmic disaster. It was a sign of total collapse in the order of the human world. In that final moment, the sky is no longer a calm celestial dome, but a battlefield of fear and chaos. The falling of starlight seems to signal that the sacred laws have failed, and everything we thought was eternal will crumble, leaving behind nothing but darkness and uncertainty. Some believe the prophecy of falling stars is really a symbol of spiritual purification, just like alchemists of old said. Crazy present clarity by skate new be poor by stars and shattering a chaos and shattering be bore. Some of old said. Only after the spiritual occasion of after destruction, Kikias and said, clearing the way for new beliefs, new values, and a new era. Through this lens, the prophecy isn't doom. It's an invitation to rebirth. It urges us to reflect on ourselves and the universal laws, and to emerge on the other side more awake, more whole, and more aligned with truth. We're critics. On the other hand, warn that this idea carries the weight of fatalism. If the stars are destined to fall no matter what, then what's the point of building, dreaming, or creating? This mindset can spiral into fear and helplessness, or worse, be used by extremists to justify chaos and control, as some point to modern astronomy and physics, which show us that the stars move in harmony with stability and order. From that view, the fall of the stars might not be literal at all, but a metaphor for inner collapse, an emotional or societal reckoning, not a cosmic one. The prophecy of the falling stars has always stirred conflict and debate. On one hand, it echoes through ancient civilizations and religious texts, from Mayan glyphs to Nostradamus verses, always appearing in times of upheaval, like a mirror held up to collapsing empires. On the other hand, scholars argue it's a reflection of our deep fear of the unknown and our fragile grip on destiny. History shows that when crisis hits, plague, war, upheaval, people often reach for these end-time myths to make sense of the chaos. Take the end of the Middle Ages. For example, plague and war tore through Europe, and many believed it was a sign the stars had truly fallen. They saw it as divine punishment, a sign of the apocalypse. Modern science, however, gives us a radically different picture, one of cosmic balance and laws that don't bend to prophecy. From that view, these visions may not be predictions at all, but powerful metaphors, reminders to stay awake, tend to our spirit, and seek meaning beyond fear. In the end, the prophecy of the falling stars is both a warning about destruction and a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and hopes. It asks us this: when the old world breaks apart, can we find the strength within to build something new? Is it a shadow of fate, or a call to rise, transform, and create again? That's the question, and maybe the challenge that every truth seeker must face for themselves. Imagine a pitch black night where the earth is shrouded in a thick, suffocating gloom, and the sky shows only a faint, blood-red glow casting eerie light on shattered clouds in ancient prophecy. The return of the great flood describes a cataclysmic deluge that would wash away the traces of human history and dismantle the existing social, cultural, and natural order. The prophecy foretells that when the divine can no longer tolerate humanity's sin and arrogance, they will unleash an unrelenting torrent that transforms the world into chaos. While erasing all pretenses, and legend holds that this flood is not merely a natural disaster, but a sacred judgment meant to destroy all worldly achievements and pave the way for a new moon. Return the great flood as a symbol of purification, as supporters view the great must simply be entirely reset before true rebirth can occur. They point to flood myths found in ancient civils and Indian mythology. Science, living is foretold into cleansing can humanity shed its decaying bonds and emerge with a renewal, pure spirit and fresh vitality? They argue that this breaking down to rebuild model applies not only to nature, but also to the renewal of human society and the spirit of critics. However, Return of the Great Flood prophecy is excessively pessimistic and extreme, easily plunged into fatalism and despair. They claim it likely represents an exaggeration in ancient perceptions of natural disasters or a product. The face fee, although modern climate sea of speed, weather of extreme increasing frames, the increasing certainties, collect perceptions of natural disasters. There's no evidence of a single where that such a doomsday narrative could be exploited by extremist groups to stoke public panic and manipulate society and politics. They assert that reducing conflicts enacts natural phenomena to inevitably diversity and judgment, but also diversity from appropriate measures to combat damage, environmental climate change, and in broad hand, world fee symbolic climate change and a whole fee symbolic meaning. Not only suspects, he suspects for savages. I mean, can it? Nearly every ancient culture has a flood myth, suggesting that our ancestors recognized a cyclical force in nature that brings renewal. For example, the story of Noah's Ark in the Bible, ancient Indian flood legends, and indigenous water disaster predictions in the Americas serve as moral warnings. When humanity strays from the right path, the flood comes as a purifying force. On the other hand, modern science remains cautious about the possibility of a global flood, even though climate change and extreme weather events are on the rise. These are typically localized rather than a single world-ending catastrophe. History shows that many have fallen into despair by believing in such a prophecy, even giving up their struggle for self-improvement, while others have embraced it as an opportunity to rebuild themselves and society. For instance, during the tumultuous period of medieval Europe, when plague and war raged, many interpreted disasters as divine punishment, a belief that in turn spurred religious reform and social transformation. Similar cases appear worldwide, demonstrating that the power of prophecy can both instill destructive fear and inspire the courage to seek hope and change amid despair. When discussing this prophecy, we must recognize that the return of the Great Flood is both a symbol and a warning. It calls on us to reflect on our current social, cultural, and personal behaviors and to seek the power of purification and rebirth within. Supporters believe that only by fully understanding the consequences can we drive fundamental change in both society actions, in society and ourselves, while opponents fear that such prophecies could foster fatalism and powerlessness, even becoming the breeding ground for social upheaval and extremist ideologies. Imagine a solemn scene where one stands at the crossroads of fate for the final judgment of the soul. In this prophecy, every soul faces the ultimate test. Every act of good and evil is laid bare in that moment, revealing all secrets without mercy. The vision is grand, a mysterious light tears through the cold heavens, connecting heaven and hell as forces of light and darkness, of justice and wickedness, intertwine an irresistible spiritual trial. Every inner secret, every moral choice is exposed at this sacred and terrifying moment. Alter whether a soul ascends into eternal redemption or falls into endless darkness, say these. Final judgment of the soul heralds amid self-redemption and spiritual cleansing. They argue that this path but it professionally to inspire simply certain punishment. Supporters say the star side. so that only after this trial can the soul be truly liberated and elevated. Many believe that through this inner judgment, we come to recognize our overlooked shortcomings and then make wiser, more righteous choices on our path forward, uplifting both our inner lives and society as a whole. Proponents emphasize that such a judgment purifies the soul by revealing the true goodness hidden within the darkness, thereby bringing hope and rebirth to humanity. However, critics contend that the prophecy of the final judgment of the soul's soul smacks of fatalism, potentially plunging people into endless fear and despair as they question the meaning of individual effort and self-salvation if every soul's fate is sealed at that moment. This idea of ultimate judgment, the war, could be exploited to justify extreme control and violence, turning a seemingly just verdict into a tool of bias and oppression. Historically, themes of final judgment have been powerfully captured in art and culture. For instance, Michelangelo's Last Judgment vividly portrays the fierce struggle of souls between heaven and hell, full of both mercy and war. Yet in reality, some religious extremists have twisted these apocalyptic visions to enforce draconian social control and violent purges, was distorting their intended message of renewal. Meanwhile, some scholars argue that such prophecies are the ultimate call for human free will, urging us to continually reflect on ourselves and pursue spiritual liberation. And a psychologist sentience note that when faced with the ideal judgment, find a way to spirit transform internal. Ardent find many people discovering new meaning in life. All in all, the prophecy of the final judgment of the soul is dual in nature. It can either become a crushing declaration of fatalism or inspire people to seek hope amidst despair, leading to spiritual rebirth. Whether this judgment represents a brutal annihilation of the soul or a profound ritual of self, purification remains a question brave enough to face the innermost truth. Awaits a fate person that most truth. Imagined about a sun that doesn't shine but rather swallows light. This is the black sun. In some esoteric texts and ancient prophecies, the black sun symbolizes a mysterious, primordial force from the depths of the universe. Prophecy 8 tells us that when the black sun rises, the world will fall into an unseen night of consciousness, where technology fails, language becomes chaotic, and people can no longer understand one another as the collective consensus collapses. In this profound inner collapse, humanity's collective awareness will undergo a formatting restart. Only those truly awakened will see the hidden truth in the darkness. Visually, it's a stunning scene of the sky cast an abnormal purple, black hue, while a massive inky black sun hangs overhead, was obliterating the light of the stars as if the entire plane has been plunged into blindness. On the ground, people collapse, their senses failing and minds confused, while only a rare few gaze up at the black sun, their eyes aglow with a mysterious blue light. They are the awakened, the witnesses to a new era. Supporters believe that the black sun actually symbolizes a great reboot of human consciousness, a kind of cosmic power outage, just as a arrestor to clear out. Accumulations needs a computer system, sometimes related glitches. Civilization and awareness require periodic shutdowns and updates. In mystical lore, the black sun isn't evil, but a primordial archetype beyond mere good and evil, a necessary gateway to genuine awakening. This night of consciousness forces humanity to shed its dependence on technology and obsession with virtual reality, reconnecting us with our inner selves. Intuition was slality. Some spiritual practitioners even say that when the black sun appears, we gain the ability to walk against the light, meaning that even in a world gone completely haywire, our souls can remain clear. Another perspective comes from depth psychology, especially Jungian thought. The black sun is seen as the ultimate expression of the shadow archetype, the embodiment of all our unintegrated fears, repressions, and traumas. Only by facing and traversing it can we truly complete the process of individuation, emerging from chaotic collective consciousness to find an independent, whole self. But critics argue that such prophecies can easily be used to manufacture collective anxiety, worse, even spiraling into a doomsday cult-like superstition. Some say the so-called Black Sun is nothing more than an ancient mythologization of eclipses, or other cosmos with no real basis in modern science. They worry that people might project real world crisis, like the breakdown of the information age, the chaos brought by AI, or fears of technology failure, onto a mystical black sun moment, thereby losing their ability to respond rationally. Furthermore, some scholars warn that this prophecy could be weaponized by extremist groups to control minds. For instance, several secret societies in history have regarded the black sun as a symbol of a sacred racial rebirth, spawning dangerous ideologies and racist slogans. This dual-nature individual introspection, it can spark in nature of the prophecy is striking, or incite collective extremism and madness in Nazi occultism. For example, the black sun was seen as an entrance to mysterious energies, even linked to the fallen morning star in Revelation. In modern culture, it appears in countless films, games, and literary works, such as in Dark Souls, Alien, and Interstellar, all evoking the black sun as a symbol of ultimate fear, the boundaries of the universe. Yet there are positive interpretations too. Some meditation traditions emphasize gazing at your inner sun during deep introspection, turning black. The passive sound include to the soul experience reading clay it in a special any of many tech who produce the black wheel of the sun. You might see a spectre slowly synthesize with all time his army was, as if reaching an infinite source of awareness. The prophecy of the black sun carries a cold yet mesmerizing tension. It doesn't burn, it devours. It doesn't illuminate, it reveals the emptiness and truth hidden behind the light. This is a transcendent prophecy that challenges our reliance on hope, and our attachment won't tell you who to believe. It only asks. The black sun asks, are you ready to stand in the darkness? Imagine a moment when all the noise dies down, and it feels like even the gods have gone silent. In that stillness, the world slips into a kind of silence so deep, it gives you chills. The prophecy of the hera of the mute god paints a strange picture, one where divine messages aren't delivered with grand words anymore, but through quiet signs, cryptic symbols, and intense inner tremors. It's like some ancient scroll left behind by forgotten priests, each symbol silently hinting at secrets just before the end of days. This isn't just the breakdown of how humans and gods used to communicate. It's the sign of a deeper spiritual revolution brewing beneath the surface. Only those who can truly hear their inner voice will catch the sacred message in all that silence. The prophecy describes a world where the language of the universe completely disappears. Old religious religious rituals and holy doctrines lose their power, what's left is a cold, stripped down kind of existence. God doesn't show up in grand stories anymore, but hides in the little things. Maybe a shooting star you almost didn't notice, or a flicker of light deep in your chest. In this wordless era, divinity doesn't roar. It whispers, or just is. And that quiet pushes every soul to wake up and search for truth in the silence. Believers say the mute God age is about a massive inward shift. When religious words fail, people are forced to look inside for their own sacred experience. This silence isn't hopeless. It's a higher kind of spiritual signal. It asks us to stop chasing outside approval and start listening to our purest inner voice. Like in deep meditation, that calm, weightless state where you feel the pulse of the universe and something divine at its core. Thinkers like Carl Jung said it best: inner silence often sparks breakthrough awakenings. To them, this silent age is a soul-level revolution. Only by going through this quiet purification can we break from fate and create real, personal belief systems. They point to cultures where, once the old religious language failed, people turned to personal experience and found new forms of spiritual awakening. But critics sound the alarm. They say this whole mute God idea can lead to extreme nihilism and a sense of chaos. Without divine words, people might just feel lost and powerless, and society's moral compass could fall apart. Some even warn that this kind of prophecy could be used by radical groups to shake up traditional values and fuel unrest. If all holy speech turns to silence, then what's left to guide belief? People could get stuck in isolation or spiral into despair. And if divinity becomes about silent, personal experience, it ignores the power of shared faith and community. In real life, we often need rituals, words, and collective meaning to stay grounded. If everything turns inward, it might break social bonds and blur ethical lines. The mute God prophecy is full of contradictions. History shows that spiritual awakenings often follow the collapse of old religious language. In the late Middle Ages, Western mystics tried to ditch rigid rituals and go inward. They believed real divinity could only be touched in silence. Meanwhile, Zen masters in the East taught through wordless methods, guiding students to sudden clarity in the quiet. But today, we've seen what happens when people rely too much on inner truth and ignore outside norms. Some extreme individualists say God is silent as a way to reject all external morality. Some end up isolated, even violent. And some spiritual awakenings throughout history have led to confusion, chaos, or self-destruction. So yeah, the era of the mute God is both full of promise and packed with risk. It reminds us that when the old ways stop working, inner awakening might be the only way forward. But that kind of silence can also leave us cut off from each other, from purpose, from order. Is this prophecy a hidden call to unlock our deepest potential, or a warning sign of society unraveling? That answer's still out there, waiting for each of us to seek, feel, and decide for ourselves. Picture this. After the dust of the final judgment settles, and the old world crumbles into chaos and ash, a whole new vision quietly begins to emerge. New haven and new earth. This prophecy speaks of a total cosmic reset. One that only comes after everything has been destroyed and chaos has run its course. It says that after the floods of doomsday, the wars of revelation, the black apocalypse, and even the silence of the mute God, something beautiful will rise from the ruins. The earth will rebuild itself, comes, the skies will turn clear and bright, and every shattered piece of matter and spirit will come together in a new kind of order. This new haven and new earth isn't just about the rebirth of the physical world. It's a symbol of deep spiritual awakening and a whole new way of understanding divine. A god won't be some distant judge anymore, but an inner force, a source of limitless energy and wisdom that every person can access through self-discovery. Supporters see this prophecy as a powerful symbol of hope and renewal. They believe that when all the rot and injustice of the old world is wiped clean, humanity will finally get the chance to rebuild something better. Just like an alchemist turning lead into gold, was this new world is the reward that comes after pain, a full-blown spiritual transformation and cultural rebirth. For people of faith, it's not just a warning of destruction, it's a calling toward a better future. In this new world, every person will have the power to redefine what divinity means and what their destiny can be. It's a vision that pushes us to purify our hearts and fight for justice, even in the darkest moments, because it promises a dawn on the other side. But critics say this kind of prophecy can lead to dangerous thinking. They warn that reducing the future to one big cosmic crasset can make people think all current progress is pointless. Overhyping the new heaven and new earth idea might cause some to ignore the hard, real work of gradual reform. Worse, it could give groups an excuse to tear things down in the name of starting over. They point out that framing the universe in terms of total destruction versus total rebirth is too black and white. It ignores the slow, complex, and messy way the world really changes. And it can push people toward toxic optimism or total despair. Prophecies like new heaven and new earth popped up all through history. Think of the book of Revelation in the Bible, the rebirth visions of Nostradamus, or even Eastern ideas of the Tao's final harmony, all drenched in mystery and hope in times of crisis, like during the Reformation or the Renaissance. People lost faith in old systems and dreamed of something new. And that dream sparked real revolutions. But there's a flip side. When people take these visions literally or try to force them, things can go dark fast. Some doomsday cults and radical groups have used this prophecy as a reason to reject society or trigger chaos, with dangerous, unpredictable results. Even today, with climate crisis, economic stress, and social division, some see signs that the whole world is collapsing. For them, new heaven and new earth becomes a symbol of change, hope, and spiritual rebirth. But scientists remind us, real change usually comes slowly in steps, not all at once. So finding the balance between the inspiration of prophecy and the reality of progress, that's the real challenge we face. Well, in the end, this prophecy is packed with contradictions and endless possibilities. It gives us a beautiful dream of rebirth after total collapse. But it also risks turning into blind idealism that forgets the value of steady reform. It asks us to consider, do we need to destroy everything to move forward? Or can we awaken within and build change from the inside out? While it fuels wild hopes for the future, it also reminds us that true rebirth begins with reflection, responsibility, and the courage to grow right here in the world we have now. As we reflect on these 10 prophecies, from the great fourth reset of all things to the birth of a new heaven and new earth, we begin to see not just an apocalyptic sequence, but a powerful, paradoxical system of revelation. These unfulfilled prophecies are not mere doomsday declarations. They are profound challenges to our ideas of divinity, destiny, and the hidden power within the human soul. Each one, in its own unique way, reveals a deeper truth, that the divine is not some distant force locked away in ancient myth, but a presence waiting to awaken within all who dare to seek truth, who dare to break free from fate. Within these visions lies a dual journey, one of destruction and one of rebirth. To believers, the prophecy's delay is not a failure, but a quiet summons toward inner transformation and spiritual awakening. To skeptics, they are a dangerous breeding ground for fatalism and despair, and it's in this very tension that we are invited to rethink everything. Our image of God, our expectations for the future, and the true meaning of human agency. These prophecies force us to ask, is the future already written by divine hands? Or do our smallest choices still have the power to rewrite the stars? They remind us that real power doesn't lie in external catastrophe, but in the quiet uprising of awakened minds and liberated wills. Like an ancient mirror, they reflect our deepest fears and desires, calling us not to wait for salvation, but to become the authors of our own sacred destiny. So now, I ask you, in this journey across time and prophecy, have you begun to question your own fate, your faith, your place in the story of the cosmos? Are you ready to break free from old frameworks and explore the sacred truth that lies buried in the unknown, powered by your own inner light? Drop your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Let's talk about what these unfulfilled prophecies truly mean to you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because every step toward truth, every spark of awakening, fans the eternal fire burning deep within us all.